The hardest moment of my life didn't arrive with a car crash, a phone call in the middle of the night, or a heartbreaking goodbye. It arrived disguised as a joke. One careless sentence. One laugh meant to hide feelings I had buried for years. I smiled and casually said that she was practically my wife anyway. I expected her to roll her eyes like she always did. Instead, she looked straight into my soul, smiled with heartbreaking honesty, and quietly asked, "What's stopping us?" In that single moment, every excuse I had ever built around my heart came crashing down. Before we begin, if you believe kindness, second chances, and genuine love still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss another inspiring journey. Life has a strange way of placing extraordinary people into ordinary days. I met Emma during my first week at a small neighborhood bookstore. We weren't co-workers for long because she worked in the cafe attached to the shop while I organized shelves and handled deliveries. But somehow, our schedules always overlapped. Every morning she would hand me a coffee before I even asked, remembering exactly how I liked it. Every afternoon, I would save the mystery novels she wanted before they disappeared from the shelves. Neither of us realized that these tiny acts of thoughtfulness were quietly becoming the foundation of something much bigger than friendship. Years passed faster than either of us expected. Friends dated, married, moved away, started families, and posted perfect pictures online, while Emma and I remained exactly where we had always been together, but never officially together. We celebrated birthdays, survived job changes, helped each other through family emergencies, and spent countless evenings walking through quiet streets, talking about dreams that somehow always stayed just out of reach. Everyone around us assumed we were a couple. We laughed whenever people asked. Correcting them became almost automatic, even though a small part of me secretly wished they were right. The truth was that I loved her long before I admitted it to myself. I loved the way she stayed calm when everyone else panicked. I loved how she remembered the names of elderly customers and asked about their grandchildren. I loved that she cried during happy movies instead of sad ones, because hope affected her more deeply than heartbreak. But love wasn't the problem. Fear was. My father had walked away from our family when I was 12, leaving behind unpaid bills and promises that never came true. Watching my mother rebuild our lives taught me resilience, but it also planted a dangerous belief inside me. I convinced myself that loving someone meant risking becoming the reason they suffered. I promised I would never make someone depend on me unless I was absolutely certain I could give them everything they deserved. Since certainty never came, I kept waiting for a perfect version of myself that didn't exist. Emma carried invisible scars, too. Her previous relationship had ended after years of broken trust and endless apologies that changed nothing. She never spoke bitterly about it, but I noticed how carefully she protected her heart afterward. We became each other's safest place without ever admitting we wanted to become each other's future. Then, life tested us in ways neither of us expected. My mother became seriously ill. Hospital visits replaced weekends. Medical bills replaced savings. Sleep became a luxury. During those exhausting months, Emma never asked whether she should help. She simply appeared. She brought meals I forgot to eat. She sat beside my mother for hours so I could rest. She learned medication schedules better than I did. She even fixed things around my apartment that I hadn't noticed were broken, because my mind was somewhere else entirely. One evening, after another long day at the hospital, my mother smiled weakly and asked why I hadn't married that wonderful girl yet. I laughed awkwardly and changed the subject, but the question echoed in my mind long after I left the room. Maybe everyone else could already see what I refused to admit. Months later, my mother recovered enough to return home. Life slowly found its rhythm. Again, Emma and I celebrated quietly with takeout food in my apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked medical supplies and flowers from neighbors. We laughed more that night than we had in months. Somewhere between stories and old memories, someone joked that Emma practically lived at my place anyway. Without thinking, I shrugged, smiled, and said she was practically my wife. The room filled with laughter for exactly 2 seconds. Then silence. Emma looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. There was no teasing, no embarrassment, just quiet courage. Her eyes held years of patience, hope, disappointment, and love all at once. She softly asked, "What's stopping us?" Time seemed to freeze. Every excuse I had repeated to myself suddenly sounded meaningless. Money, timing, career, fear. None of them explained why I was willing to imagine growing old beside her but too afraid to ask her to stay forever. That night, I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't know, because I finally knew the truth. The only thing stopping us was me. I walked home alone after dropping her off, replaying those 4 simple words over and over. She hadn't demanded anything. She hadn't pressured me. She had simply held up a mirror and forced me to confront the prison I had built from my own fears. Over the next week, I realized something painful. While I had been waiting to become worthy of love, Emma had already been loving the imperfect version of me for years. She had never asked for perfection. She had only hoped for honesty. I spent days writing letters I never sent, deleting speeches I never gave, and standing outside jewelry stores too nervous to walk inside. Then I remembered something my mother once told me. She said people don't remember perfect moments. They remember honest ones. So I chose honesty. Instead of planning an elaborate proposal, I invited Emma back to the bookstore where everything had started. The cafe looked almost identical to the day we met. The same wooden tables, the same smell of fresh coffee, the same soft music floating through the air. Years had changed us, but somehow the place still felt like home. I told her everything I had hidden for so long. I admitted how deeply my father's mistakes had shaped my fears. I confessed that every time I imagined proposing, another voice reminded me of every way I could fail. I apologized for making her wait while I fought battles she never asked me to fight. Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't tears of anger. They were tears of relief. For the first time in years, neither of us was pretending. Love wasn't rescuing each other from pain. Love was choosing to stand beside someone despite it. Several months later, surrounded by close friends, grateful family members, and countless memories, we were finally married. The ceremony wasn't expensive. The decorations weren't perfect. Rain even interrupted part of the celebration. But no one cared. Happiness has a way of making imperfections disappear. During the reception, my mother hugged Emma and whispered something that made them both cry. Later, Emma told me what she'd said. "I knew you were my daughter long before today. Years have passed since then, and sometimes we still laugh about the joke that changed our lives forever. Whenever people ask how we got together, they expect some dramatic, romantic story. Instead, we tell them the truth. The biggest obstacle between us wasn't distance, another person, or bad luck. It was fear pretending to be logic. So many beautiful futures are delayed because someone is waiting for the perfect time, the perfect bank account, the perfect version of themselves. But life isn't built on perfect moments. It's built on brave ones. Sometimes all it takes is one honest question to change everything. If this story reminded you of someone you've been too afraid to appreciate, or if it gave you hope that love can still find its way through fear, please let us know in the comments by writing. Love grows where courage begins. And before this story ends, if it touched your heart, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind people kindness, forgiveness, and love still have the power to change lives. Sometimes the greatest turning points don't arrive with fireworks or grand speeches. Sometimes they arrive as a simple question, asked at exactly the right moment. Looking back now, I realize that I didn't lose years because I wasn't loved. I almost lost them because I was too afraid to believe I deserved that love. Thankfully, one brave woman refused to let fear write the ending of our story. And because of that, every ordinary morning we share today feels like the extraordinary life we almost let slip away.